everybody. Welcome to Environmental Coffee House. And with climate changes, this is Nicholas Humphrey. Everybody knows Nick. Um, it's it's great to have you tonight, Nick. It really is. We haven't done a show in a while. We're doing this tonight, and we are doing the state of the planet on Thursday. So we've got a lot. And hi, Karen and TCR and Mike Olinger and Warren and everybody's with us. So this is great. And share. We've got a lot of people from Facebook tonight also, which is fantastic. Like 19 people or 15 to 19 people on Facebook. So take it away, Nick. What's been going on?
Oh, well, glad to be here. Excuse me if my brain's a little foggy. I'm not quite feeling my best tonight. Don't worry, it's not coronavirus.
No.
So.
And also, I want the guests to tell me if my audio is okay, because I don't know where my audio is coming from. This or not. So I need a test. I really need a test show with someone. So TCR says you're looking sharp, even though you don't feel well. You're looking sharp, Nick. That's what he said. So that's cool. And Adam's here. Hi, Adam. And Warren, grateful to see you. Thanks, Nick and Sandy. Well, tonight we're gonna go over what Nick's page looks like. His Facebook page and the articles, and then questions, anything you guys want to know. I mean, I know I've had some things. So, hey, thank you for letting me know the audio's good. I really have no idea where it's coming from, even though I've checked the settings 400 times. So, Nick, I guess we can start out with what the hell's going on with the
heat? Yeah. Well, the answer is easy, although it's always seemingly more complicated in the end. But I mean, basically, there's been a lot of high pressure that's been over much of the U.S. This summer, especially over the South and the East Coast. So you've been getting a lot of southern states. So you've been getting awful lot of heat. And I mean, it's been all over the place. I mean, upstate New York has had a lot of heat.
Western.
I've seen incredible heat waves down in the Southwest U.S. just this past weekend. Parts of Death Valley. Death Valley had a high of 127 degrees.
Yeah,
but actually, no, it was 128 degrees. 128 degrees Fahrenheit.
I saw that. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting up there. It's like, I think around 54, 55 Celsius, maybe a little bit lower than that, pretty low, or pretty hot. And then Phoenix has dealt with 115, 117. So it's basically been this pattern that's favored very intense high pressure systems. What high pressure systems do is that basically they do two things. They can bring up heat from the south, from the pole, or from the equator towards the pole. So you get hotter, you get heat, but it also clears the sky out and causes substance, air to sink. And as it sinks, it heats up as it compresses toward the ground, and you get heat from that as well. So we have had a really strong high pressure system over the Southwest U.S. this weekend, made it very hot. And that's going to spread over the plains actually later this week into this weekend, and it may get near 100 degrees here in Lincoln, Nebraska on Saturday with heat indices of like 105, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So very, very hot conditions for this part of the country. And I mean, the heat's been all over the place. Oklahoma, Texas, 110s in West Texas and Texas Panhandle. Heat has been in the 90s in, say, Louisiana, but they get all the humidity, so they get heat indices of 110, 115. I think there was even a spot in Louisiana that had 120 heat index. So almost 48 to 50 degrees Celsius.
Crazy.
So very, 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 very hot conditions.
Well, is there anything, I'm asking how's the echo, because somebody said you had an echo. It's always a goddamn work in progress to do these shows. I'm telling you. Is the echo still there, guys? I changed it and put echo cancellation on. I have pulled up Nick's page, and I just wondered if there was any. You know, when you do Facebook, you can't stop the. I didn't stop the notifications. Hi, Joe Meza. Um, I didn't know if there was anything you wanted me to show on the page, or if we want to just continue having our little chat about weather, because I know I was wondering in Western New York what the hell is going on with, a heat wave. It's like Florida. We get thunderstorms in the afternoon, torrential rains, and then it goes away. It's like Florida, and I hate
Yeah,
Florida.
you guys had really peculiar weather up there the past
No
week or so, week or
shit.
2 weeks, where it's yeah, where yeah, you guys get those what we call shortwave ridges that are really strong. They blow through really fast, but they heat everything up. And
Yeah,
then you get the shortwave troughs that go through that bring
yeah.
the unsettled weather. So you get the thunderstorms off the lake and stuff. Actually, had a like sometime last week there was a really weird feature that came off. I don't know if it was Lake Michigan or Lake Superior, but it had almost a tropical cyclone type structure to it. And it came off the lake with all these thunderstorms
Oh my
and
God, that's what
heavy
Karen.
rain and stuff.
She just said
Yeah,
that.
so
What was the
yeah,
rotational storm that lifted off the Great
yeah,
Lakes on Saturday? You read each other's mind.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. That was a
Wow.
really strange little feature. Some of the meteorologists on the Weather Channel were talking about it too, and yeah, yeah. This, and of course, you had the tropical storm that went through. Was it Faye? Yeah, it went through New Jersey
Yeah.
and New York. So yeah, it's been an active pattern for in the tropics too. Like the that was the earliest six name storm actually was Faye
Okay.
on record, and it's been trending that way this year, where they've had the earliest fourth name storm, earliest sixth name storm. I think it was the second earliest fifth name storm on record. They just haven't been very strong systems, so that's like the benchmark for a lot of these records was like 2005 season, which was very, very hyperactive, like the most active season on record, I believe, actually, in terms of storms. But a lot of those storms were very strong right from the get go, like Category 5 Hurricane Emily and Dennis that struck the Florida Panhandle and
Oh
those
man.
storms back in 2005. People remember how bad that season was. This season's been trending at a faster start, but the storms haven't been very strong, thankfully. So we can, you can deal with Faye. Faye was like a nor'easter in the winter in terms of
Oh yeah.
impact. It wasn't dramatically destructive or anything like that. But there are signs out there that this season could be an extremely hyperactive season that could feature very strong storms.
Oh.
The water temperatures in the Atlantic are very warm, especially Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, very abnormally warm water temperatures. There's active pattern, a very wet pattern in the equatorial region of Africa, where a lot of the tropical waves originate from later in the season, later in July and
Right.
August. Um, and that could be a sign that there could be frequent seeds of storms that come off of Africa that then become tropical systems later on in the Atlantic. Right now, everything's quiet because there's a lot of what we call stable air, that dry air from the Saharan desert going over the Atlantic Ocean that's suppressing tropical activity from developing. So we're not getting a lot of these strong systems. We're getting a lot of these
Oh.
weak ones or nothing at all. So
So what does that
so
mean for
far, so good.
hurricane development? That's later on in the summer, isn't it? That's later.
Yeah. Right now, you have this really dry air that blows off the Saharan desert, the very hot Saharan desert.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that any storms that try to develop in the Atlantic, when they encounter this dry air, those thunderstorms they try to develop just go poof, they evaporate. They literally just don't structurally develop into anything. You need moisture all throughout the atmospheric column to support a tropical system to develop. And when you have this dry air coming off of the Saharan desert going out into the middle of the Atlantic and into Gulf of Mexico, and I mean we had all that Saharan dust that came into the U.S. a couple weeks ago from those dust storms in the desert region of Africa. That just doesn't isn't very conducive for tropical systems to develop
Mm-hmm.
out in the Atlantic. But as we get deeper into the season, those uh, dust storms settle down, and you get more moisture from equatorial Africa in these tropical waves, these little areas of disturbances that come off West Africa, south of the Cape Verde Islands,
Mm-hmm.
and those can eventually develop into cyclones. And the wetter the season you have in equatorial Africa, the more waves you have, the more opportunities you have for more storms to develop. And it's looking like it's going to be a very wet season in equatorial Africa. So you're probably going to get a lot of these thunderstorm complexes that come off of west coast of Africa, and those will be the seeds for tropical systems to develop out in the middle of the Atlantic in what we call the main development region. And that could spell a very active season where we're getting a lot of named storms, and some of them could be very strong because of the warm water temperatures we're seeing in the Atlantic basin.
We have a picture of what you were talking about. I'm putting up from your page. It is hot, and that was, I believe, that was the desert in California. It said,
Oh yeah,
yeah, 128 degrees Fahrenheit in Badwater. Wow.
yeah, and it is.
And
I think
that's
it got to.
not normal. I mean, that's not the normal.
That's hot.
Yeah, that's
That's very
hot.
hot.
That's
Yeah,
hot.
I mean it's one of the hottest temperatures you'll find in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of arguments, a lot of debates about whether the Death Valley 134-degree temperature from the 30s, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
is accurate or not.
Right.
There's some debate amongst some scientists, some climate scientists doubt that that's accurate, that they think it's closer to um, that the record-setting world temperature is probably closer to 129, 130 degrees. It's pretty much the maximum that you can get on Earth right now. But I mean, that's getting pretty close.
That's
I
close.
mean, that's 128 degrees. You
Now,
know,
wasn't it like that in India as well? And that was that last year?
that's here, and they also had some big heat this year too.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, before the monsoon, they had a lot of heat waves, 100, 110s, if I remember correctly. Very hot, and it gets very hot in northern India during the before the monsoon. The monsoon's kind of like for both India and Arizona, those two areas that get the monsoon. It's the reliever of the heat. You remove the heat, get all the heat out, because that's how the monsoon
Yeah, I was
forms.
just
So
going
you
to
get
ask you. Tell us a little
you,
about that.
yeah, you get offshore winds, and during the dry season, and then or during the but then during the wet season, after it's gotten very hot on the continent, you get a predominantly onshore flow that develops, and that brings in moisture, and so your monsoon, what we call a monsoon trough, an area where you get all the thunderstorms that blow up and develop as it moves inland, and gradually you get wetter and rainier farther into the continent. And that's what happens in India. So that's why India gets a lot of its big heat in like
Yeah.
April, May. Then the monsoon comes in into June and July. And then Arizona, same deal. You start getting um, more of the monsoon moisture in July and August, but they've been waiting
They've been
in
waiting.
Arizona for that monsoon to really kick in Arizona, because and I mean, as long as it doesn't kick in, they're just getting the sun blasting them with all this intense heat in the
Well,
Southwest, and it's very hot. So it's been a
yeah.
bit delayed there this year.
A friend of mine lives in Phoenix, and I asked her, she's been there a long time, and I said, is this different? And she's like, oh, it's always hot in the summer. I hate being here in the summer. I should leave. But she said it was going
Oh
to be
yeah,
115. I don't remember her telling me it was going to be 115 there. But Kim lived in Arizona, and she's with us. Kim said Tino tonight. And she said the same thing back in the 80s. So is this a normal wave? Are we going? What are we going through?
well, you get Well, you get seasons where the monsoon takes longer to move in, and so it gets hotter. It's hot and hot and hot. But this has been for some areas for record-setting heat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean for Phoenix, just in terms of raw like all-time record heat, it hasn't been that hot. I think the record for Arizona actually is 122, 50 degrees Celsius for an actual air temperature, which is horrible.
Horrible.
But I never experienced that ever. And I think they dealt with like 115, like you said, 117. But what they're actually dealing with in terms of record-setting heat down there has been the duration of the heat. It's I believe they're getting second or third longest period on record of 110s days with consecutive days above 110 right now.
Wow.
And they're approaching the record for days with minimum temperatures at or above 90.
So that's it. It's
Like,
really not that it's the
yeah,
the amount of
it's
time.
not the hot.
It's how long.
Yeah, it's not. It's how long. Yeah, it's been a durational thing uh, down there. I mean, I follow National Weather Service office in Arizona on Facebook and Twitter, and they've been posting every day. The low this morning was 94. Low this morning was 93.
Oh,
It's horrible.
I know. I was whining last week. It was 90 for like 89 and 90 for 5 days in a row, and the afternoon thunderstorms, and it was definitely it was disturbing. But I waited for you to ask.
I mean, and the thing is that Arizona is actually a great example of both the effects of a human anthropogenic effects, so both the effects of climate change
Yep.
and the effects of land use changes, because Phoenix has gotten bigger, more populated and bigger over the decades, and there's also the background of climate change going on. Climate change is changing the nighttime lows more than the daytime highs. So the nighttime lows globally are getting hotter faster than the daytime highs. So you're seeing places that are like Phoenix that are getting more 90-degree low temperatures than in the past. But it's also because the urban heat island, the city's gotten bigger. The city has gotten more urbanized over the decades.
That's true.
And so
that
pavement gets hot during the day when it gets to 110, 115, and then it doesn't cool off as fast at night as it used to maybe in the 1960s, for example. So it's not like it was unheard of to get 90-degree lows in the 1960s in Phoenix, but you're getting more of those in the 2020s now because of climate change and land use changes.
Are there any? Is there wildlife that's affected? I know it's a city, but what are the critters? I mean, they got to be affected if it's changing like that. Kim says the lows are not the norm. No.
I would imagine so. I don't know a lot about the limits of that the plants and animals can take down there. I mean, I assume they're pretty extreme creatures to be able to handle 110s, 190-degree lows. But when you're starting to get those more often, and that's the thing with climate change and with land use changes, you're getting not just extreme events, like 120, 122 degrees or something, like extreme events. You're getting more of those events over and over again. And it's taxing on animal physiology, human physiology. I mean, humans have to either get air conditioning or get the heck out. So I mean, I was looking down there. I was at those temperatures this weekend. I was like, oh my goodness, how can you live through that without air conditioning? It's just be very challenging.
And that's another feedback loop in itself, the air conditioning feedback loop.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the the floods in China and what's happening there. And is that because you do have an article, I believe you put something up on your Facebook. If I could, I'm going to pull up the article if I can find it. It is oh, look, you have us live there. Let's see. You have the Earth could hit climate threshold in the next 5 years. That was a good one, but I am looking for.
That's something we can talk about on Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday when we do State of the Planet. I'm looking for the article. Oh, no, that's what, Bangladesh? Oh Lord, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Those people should I open that one? Or do you want to go?
Sure.
Because here's.
I mean, I can talk in general. I mean,
here's the Chinese one.
I mean, yeah. I mean, China. I mean, I post these news stories every day. I don't get to read through all of them so much because I want to give a chance for everybody else to get to them. But I post them, and I've seen a lot about China, about Bangladesh. I know there was that huge landslide that killed all those miners in I think it was Myanmar. Last week, I believe.
Is this
I mean,
that
was
Myanmar.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's farther back, but because I post so much every day.
Well, I'm looking because it's interesting. I'm showing everybody. You have everything on here, graphics and information about heat and the weather service in Amarillo, and I like it. I like it. I enjoy when I get a chance. You've got Florida. You've got everything up here. Actual air temperatures.
I mean, I try to. This is like my morning routine. My morning routine as I find news stories. I find stuff that is going on that maybe the Weather Service here in the U.S. is posting about. I try to find stuff that I know connects with the theme of the page, which is climate change and extreme weather events. And because I mean, there's just there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, yeah, and I mean, I mean, there's that high temperature, 116 in Phoenix.
Yep.
I mean, it's
New Orleans.
It's crazy.
New Orleans, the heat index was 117 in New Orleans.
Yeah.
How about Russia?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Do we know what goes on there? I mean, do you ever follow what goes on in that? I mean, we've been reporting, Jennifer and I have been reporting on Siberia and the Norilsk spill and the big spill, which is horrible. We've been doing that, but we don't talk a lot about now, like Australia. Is it winter there? Yes. But what is it in Russia?
It's a very hot summer.
Very hot summer?
That's what it is in Russia.
They're having a very hot summer?
They've been dealing with the same deal. They've been dealing with very abnormally strong high pressure that just sits over the same place. I mean, it fluctuates and moves around a little bit across Siberia here and there, central Siberia, eastern Siberia. But it's basically been sitting there since January, heating that region of the world, and you've had just so many fires going on there, all this heat. You had the 100-degree temperature north of the Arctic Circle up there.
Wow.
And now there's a situation developing this month, where you have that very strong high pressure system moving and sitting right over the Arctic Ocean. And it does two things. Number one, it heats up the air over the Arctic Ocean, so that speeds up ice melt, thins the ice out. But it's also making it favorable for sea ice to leave the Arctic Ocean through into the Atlantic. So you have this favorable pattern of Arctic sea ice to leave the Arctic Ocean entirely and melt away. So so both processes accelerate ice melt. And I mean, it's the low. I think it's still daily records are being set for sea ice in the Arctic Ocean basin as a whole. It's record setting in the Siberian Arctic seas for sure, because of all the heat that's been going on in northern Siberia for months now. So, uh, you know, there's been a lot of speculation among some of the scientists, climate scientists I see on Twitter, that have
Mm-hmm.
been doing statistics trying to determine what's going to happen with the September minimum. I've been asked a lot. Do I think there will be a blue ocean event this year? I don't think there will be.
Paul
It
doesn't either.
takes
I don't think Sam
yeah
Carana does he? Or Paul? Well, whoever they are, and Paul.
yeah. I
Everybody in our
think
genre.
to get to get the blue ocean event I've explained to people it's going to take a series of extreme circumstances coming together all at once because it's such an extreme event. You're talking about like less than 1 million square kilometers of sea ice. That's the official. That's what everybody sort of commonly recognizes as the blue
Right.
ocean, is the blue ocean state. And you're going to have to get a very bad melt season. You're going to have to get it's consistently bad throughout the season. It doesn't let up. You're going to have to get powerful storms probably late in August and early September that destroy a bunch of ice, like what happened in 2012. Um, and you also will have to get the central Arctic basin ice, like the ice that sits north of Greenland,
Right.
to start to really fail. Like you really, really, really start losing significant amount of ice.
Mm.
Like the ice retreats, maybe starts to not only regress from the center of the Arctic from the North Pole, but also regresses from the Greenland coast. So you start losing ice there, and you just get a significant regression. That's really what will do it when you lose that ice in the central Arctic basin, central
We
part of the
have
basin, and
Jarney with us.
that's not really happening yet.
Right. I just wanted to read a quick. Jarney says we only have slush left, no old ice. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean it's true. Um, uh, but as long as it's still there, it still counts for extent.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of one of those things where it's still sitting there. It still makes the water 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It still keeps it cold,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's garbage ice. It's not very effective as ice. It's still there, but it is getting progressively thinner, progressively younger ice, and weaker structurally as ice. It's just, and that is the difference between 2020 and even 2012. I mean, basically 2012, all that was left was the old ice, and that's what created that. When you had that record minimum in 2012, that was all was left. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a minimum
Yeah.
record in 2020. A lot of the scientists that do the statistics based on what's going on here in June
Mm-hmm.
or in June and here in July, they think it could be like the third lowest on record, the second lowest on record. I wouldn't be surprised if it in fact is the lowest on record.
You think?
I mean, based on the trends that we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, that's just a personal opinion. Certainly, I would believe the statistical analysis, but if you start getting storms that destroy more ice later in the summer, you could very well see a minimum record in September. But I don't think it'll be an actual blue ocean event. I think we still have maybe even several years before we get to that point where we see something like that.
So, okay. Well, we see something like that. Uh, Another area of the world I guess I wanted to talk about was where I don't the country where the elephant deaths occurred. Uh, I don't remember if it was
But
Bots.
I don't recall. Yeah, I don't
It's in
recall where that
Africa.
was
I mean,
either.
it is Africa. I'm
Yeah,
just wondering
yeah.
if they're having, because I didn't follow up on what the scientists are saying are the causes, but I can't help but think that climate change has something to do with it. But
Yeah,
again,
I was wondering I just I didn't read up on it enough, but
right?
I was like thinking, okay, is there like drought going on, or
Right.
is there like was there some kind of extreme like storm event that happened that killed off? I mean, I was just like very curious what happened with those
Well,
elephants.
let me see if I could find anything. I mean, maybe there is, and we can
Yeah.
hear it. But I mean, we will find out. We will find out. But I just, yeah, I think it's Botswana. Yeah, July 3rd. Let me read it from what I got, and then I don't know if they have. Let's see, mysterious deaths, hundreds of elephants, but it was in on the Okavango Delta. Oh, and they said
Okay.
poaching. They ruled out poaching because the tusks were found. So, what is killing 13? Oh, here, National Geographic has one. 13 hours ago, they came up with an update. I got to find it. The theories. What are the theories here? I'm wondering. They said they walk in circles and appear dizzy before suddenly dropping dead. Did they get COVID? I mean, who knows? And they're saying no, it's behavior, but they're
Yeah.
saying it's unlikely that it's tuberculosis and the tusks aren't missing and the death toll keeps growing. And,
That sounds like well, I mean, the first thing that pops in my head as a meteorologist when you hear
right in the
those
middle.
physical symptoms
Mm-hmm.
would be like heat stroke or heat exhaustion or something. Um, I don't know how elephants deal with that.
Well,
Um,
it said ingestion of
uh,
toxic
yeah.
bacteria in the water, anthrax poisoning,
Oh yeah.
poisoning by humans, viral infection, or pathogenic microbe. All of this contamination, it says, especially if environmental factors have played a part, such as this year's late heavy rainfall after years of drought. So that's
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yep, you
Yeah.
nailed it. You got it. You said it before we even knew. Wow.
Yeah.
So we'll have to follow up on that one. I think definitely. Maybe we could follow up a
Yeah.
little bit on the state of the planet. I'll get some stuff when we come back Thursday night because that one I love elephants. I've been reporting. I did a whole show on elephant extinctions and what's left. And I think that the numbers are overinflated of elephants, and now we've lost. That's a lot of elephants. It's very hot in my house. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's so hot in my house. Sorry. It's probably 81 degrees in here and I'm whining. But no fan. I didn't put any fan on. So what's going on in the chat? Does anybody have questions that you want to ask Nick? Because that's what I said. That you know, oh, Kim says it's always from us humans. Yeah, it is. My God, I'm dying. It's
Yeah.
hot in here. Um, Go ahead, guys. Do you have any questions? I think I need to set up a fan. I don't know if I have a.
Yeah, it's hot. It's warm here. I mean, we're not hitting that 100 degrees yet. That'll be at the end of the week. It starts getting that hot. But yeah, it's warm, and I'm on the second floor of my place, and
Ugh.
it's warm here. So
Yeah, I'm kind of, well, I guess you could say it's a second floor because my basement's the whole first floor and it's half underground. But, I mean, we've had the weirdest weather and I'm trying to make my garden, trying to figure out how the hell to get this uh, garden going for the everything's different too. We put things in and got a freeze, and then we had to take them out. It was insane. Here, just
hmm
trying to garden, and I noticed that other people do have the same issues. Similar issues around
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Sorry, guys, but I'm dying. It's hot as hell in my room. I can't go without a fan anymore. Or next, I'm gonna have to move my whole show outside at night. Oh my gosh. Going south here. Hey,
Oh yeah.
hola, Torstein. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say one thing we could mention, or I could mention, is the watch out for is the Southern Plains drought that's going on. All this heat and dry conditions may mean the expansion of the drought in Kansas and Oklahoma. And it's been trying to expand into Nebraska, but we've been getting episodes of rain in eastern Nebraska that kind of keep it at bay, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still been dry in parts of northeast Nebraska too,
Oh my God.
and out west and western southwestern Nebraska into Colorado too. The west and extending into the southern plains, it's been getting pretty dry, like pretty severe drought in some areas.
Wow.
So that might be something I have to watch. I know 2012 was the historic mega drought that spanned the Great Plains. I mean, I remember driving when I lived in Brookings, South Dakota, north of Sioux Falls, in 2012, driving on the US 77 through northeast Nebraska to Lincoln, and the corn was all like crumpled up
Oh,
and looked pitiful and dried out and worthless. It was just as bad. It was very bad, and hopefully that's not going to develop. It looks like there's enough precipitation going on to keep like such a huge extent of land from falling to drought. But there's quite a bit of land that's in the plains that's already in drought right now. And the west obviously is getting
yeah.
southwest is getting worse because this is so hot.
Why can't we pipe water instead of oil? Why can't we freaking pipe water
Yeah.
from instead of oil from one part of the country to another, where there's a lot of water to? I mean, it just seems to me like that would be, it would be something we should do. But
Yeah, the future may involve
yeah,
whatever future we have may involve trying to desalinate water and all these expensive measures to try to get fresh water to people that live in regions that are getting hotter.
all
So
right.
we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but it's going to get hotter and drier.
Hotter dryer. Well, we've got questions. Oh, hi, Harley Canine. The fall this fall? You changed your name to better reflect how you feel? Oh, the fall this fall, huh? We'll see. Harley's just the consummate doomer. The fall this fall. I want to go back to the questions, and there was a couple. Let's find them. Nick, any news about
Yeah.
effects on agriculture, or is that not your area? I think Jean wants to know because you're in the breadbasket, and so we knew that we were hearing that there were going to be. I hear you, little one. That there were going to
Yeah, I
be.
know. He's kind of having trouble falling
Bring
asleep,
him
so
in
he's
on your
screaming.
lap, and can he sit with us?
No, he's with my fiance right
All
now,
right,
so
all right, all right. Well,
yeah, crying and yelling.
he
But
wants
I
daddy.
don't really. I admit I don't track the
Okay.
agriculture as well as I probably should. So I don't really. I haven't heard anything in the news going on. Obviously, there was a lot of damage to ag last year, but I think there was probably enough to be able to continue on and carry on. Obviously, we still have food,
Yeah.
so that's good.
I was just thinking that this
um,
morning. I don't go out much for
um,
food, but
now, if anything, supply chains have been hit because of the
yeah,
pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's been the crazy thing. Has been the pandemic has been messing with supply chains. I mean, we have all these meat packing plants and stuff here in Nebraska, and they had like all these coronavirus clusters and stuff. People getting sick because they're in close proximity to each other. I mean,
God,
I
that's so
did
awful.
I did only for a day, but I did like a temp job one time at a meat packing facility in Lincoln, and it was, I mean, by the way, never do
Pat,
that kind of job.
yeah.
It's a hard job. It sucks. But
That's a hard
yeah,
job.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
but I mean, you're in close proximity to other people, so I mean, it's just easy to catch whatever they got, you
I
know.
just caught whatever
Um,
somebody had sneezed. Okay, I have a question from Carl. Carl is in Seattle. Actually, Carl did some really good work that I followed. He was at CHOP. And I'm going to
mhm.
add his.
That's my neighborhood, by the way. That's my old neighborhood in Seattle,
Yeah,
Capitol Hill.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah,
You're from CHOP. Oh boy. Nick is
yeah,
from
yeah.
CHOP.
I lived about just about like 10 minutes from the East Precinct
Really?
where that shop was. So
Oh,
yeah. So I mean, that's my
how'd you
neighborhood.
feel about that takeover? Wild. All right, we're not going to go there.
Interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me read this. Carl says, "Environmental Coffeehouse. What does Nick think of Cliff Mass and 350 Seattle's petition to make him not talk about climate? Like Nick, he's very precise and isn't as much of a doomer as some people want him to be. Do you know anything about this guy?"
I've actually met him before, Cliff
Oh,
Bass. I met him at the
cool.
American Meteorological Society annual conference in Seattle in 2011 when I was a University of Nebraska student. I was working as a AMS media guy, and I
Yeah.
interviewed him
Oh,
for the media. I actually have that interview. If you go to my Weatherman 474747 YouTube channel,
okay.
I have just random videos and stuff. I did my interview with him back in 2011. It's still on
Oh,
there.
that's okay. There's nothing
But
wrong with that.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. But I know he's not. Um, he's got. I don't know what his issue is with climate change. He tends to be. I think he's just very. I don't know if he's contrarian so much, but he's very conservative on some of his ideas about how much extreme events are actually play a role in the climate change. I mean, in some ways, you can appreciate the conservatism because you know, you don't want to necessarily you don't want people to attach every single event. Oh, this has something to do with climate change. That has something to do with climate change. But at the same time, the science has evolved, and so it's much easier to say look at hurricanes or look at severe heat events, rain events, and actually be able to statistically figure out like how likely this event was because of climate change. Because the climate has changed already so much.
yeah.
It doesn't seem like it maybe to the average person with a very short memory what the climate used to be like in their location. But statistically, it's shifted. I mean, pretty significantly. I mean, we're dealing with dealing with a lot more severe conditions, altered conditions than we were even 10 years ago.
Mm,
And so I
right.
think he's kind of running behind the curve a bit in terms of his understanding
Oh,
of the effects of climate change on real world weather events. And that's my opinion of him. I don't really track him for climate change stuff
okay.
because he's not really into that. He's solid if you want to know about like West Coast weather, Pacific Northwest weather, Western Washington weather,
Okay.
because obviously he professor at the University of
That's all
Washington.
right.
He knows his stuff with weather, but climate change maybe not so much.
All right. Hey, TCR Galaxy would like to know where you went to high school.
Oh, in Seattle,
Hmm.
Garfield High School. I
Okay.
graduated in 2002.
Okay.
So
Cool. Rich
yeah.
Diana says Oxfam says 12,000 could be dying of hunger each day by the end of the year due to COVID-related shortages. Do you think? Mm.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard the UN has been pretty bullish on the danger of famine because of COVID
Mm-hmm.
19 related like shutdowns and lockdowns and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where we well you know what we should have done is in like here in the U.S. and I mean this is getting off topic a little bit, but
Okay.
we just talking about COVID. I mean, what we should have done is just had a hard lockdown. The entire world should have done this. Have a really hard lockdown, bite the bullet, try to do what we can to help those that are most in need,
Mm-hmm.
but have this lockdown, squash the virus out, and then be able to open up without having the virus still circulating through the population, community transmission, and be able to have some sense of normalcy and be able to have our like our our trade and our what's the word? What's the phrase I'm looking for? The what I was just talking about with the food. You know, be able to
Shortage.
have food.
Shortages.
You know,
Supply
supply
chain.
lines,
Yeah.
supply chains, be able to return to some normalcy
Mm-hmm.
without having people suffering. But now it's just like all this, you know, countries are doing. Some countries are doing this, some countries are doing that. People are, you know, and the economy is having all this uncertainty, and so it's tanking. Well, for everyone but rich people, of course.
Oh,
Rich
of
people are getting richer.
course. Yeah.
The poorest among
Getting
us
poorer by the
are getting
minute.
worse, you know, and so um, you so we haven't dealt with the virus in a lot of countries. The U.S. is crazy. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, Brazil is ridiculous. Russia is bad. A lot of some other countries that don't have as much
Poland.
resources to deal with it are doing poorly as well. They're not getting
Well,
sufficient
it's
help.
arrogance.
And
It's arrogance
yeah,
and it's science disbelief and it's, and that's
yeah,
surprising for Russia, who has, some stellar, excellent scientists and programs.
yeah.
That's all right. Let's see.
But it took forever. But it took forever for him to convince Putin that climate change matters
Well,
too.
yeah,
Like he's kind of a soft denier of climate change himself, even though his scientists are some of the best in the world. With
I know.
because they have Siberia to study climate
Yeah,
change. But Putin cares more about trying to open up the
of
Arctic and
course.
getting oil out of the Arctic, and just like the United States wants to do too, actually.
That's why he
So
cares about it. Okay,
yeah.
let's see. Natural Progressive. Ask Nick whether he thinks the shutdowns for the virus are a net benefit or disaster for the biosphere. And that kind of goes into another one where Mike Olinger earlier wanted to talk about global dimming. And then we just had that study. I think Jennifer and I touched on it, the study that came out about the emissions going down during this, they finally coming out with some measurements. Would you like to address?
Yeah. Um, well, I think I think it was a net. Well, for the countries that did it properly, if you're trying to actually squelch out the virus, and that's your reason for locking down, is to stop the virus from transmitting through your community, like New Zealand, China, even though they bungled things early on with the virus
Right.
in Wuhan, they ultimately did what they needed to do. Italy, again, they bungled things early. They lost a lot of lives, but they locked down. The countries that did it correctly, they got a net benefit out of it. They lost less people in the end, and they they've severely limited community transmission of the virus and saved a bunch of their population that is vulnerable to it, older people and people with disabilities or comorbidities. Um, but for now, as far as global dimming, I think there still needs to be more looked at in terms of how that affected the actual climate of the planet, or has affected the climate of the planet this year, and that probably won't be for a while. Because I mean, I've seen, obviously we understand the basics of global dimming and what that means, but
Hmm.
it wasn't universal. Not every country locked down with the same intensity in terms of limiting emissions. There was overall a reduction in emissions, but it wasn't the same everywhere. And dimming can have more of a regional effect, depending on how severely you constrain the emissions in that particular region. So China did it very strongly. The U.S. Not so much.
No.
Other countries like Italy again did it very severely. So how did that affect their their temperatures? How did that affect their precipitation? What was the effect on those regions that did the hard lockdown? Um, New Zealand would be another great example. They did a very fairly hard lockdown. So I would like to that's kind of what I would like to see. So overall, because I mean, there's already background global warming going on as it is, and we're looking at potentially the hottest year on record here in 2020. Now, is that extra push because of the lockdowns, or was that going to happen anyways because it's just getting hotter on planet Earth from the black background global warming that's going on? I don't have the answer to that. So there's a lot of uncertainty with me when it comes to dimming because it's a lot more variable on shorter time scales than the carbon dioxide that
Right.
we know is going to be sitting in the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. So
Okay.
that's sort of my view. So I think the lockdowns for what their purpose were a net benefit, although it's not very it didn't really um, doesn't really, I suppose, do anyone any good if your economy crashes. We don't want, we don't necessarily want
Collapse
uh,
this way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yep.
I think for what they were purposed to do, it was a net benefit.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on. Raza's here, and Raza usually doesn't get to join the show. It's probably the middle of the night for him. Uh, Nick uh, Guy Mac, says that we are probably at 2C over baseline. He said it today. What's your opinion? And me. So I'm going to give that one to you, Nick. From everything I read, we're supposed to be what is it? The IPCC or the world, whoever it is that said, well, we're going to probably say we're at 1.5. They'll let that happen, but Guy says we're at 2. What do you think?
Well, the idea going around that we're above 2C already or above 1.5 is is based on how you calculate the value because if you're looking at land air temperatures,
Right.
then um, yeah, we're above 1.5. We're the land air temperatures are going into, if you're looking at them annually, annual averages, I think in 2016 hit like 1.7, 1.8 C,
Mm-hmm.
and in individual months, we've certainly have approached 2C. Especially in early 2016, the months got very anomalously warm. Um, but if you're just looking at land air, if you're looking at land air and ocean surface temperatures, which is how the global average temperature is calculated, then we're not above 1.5 yet. And that's how the average is calculated. The reason for that is because 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water, and the ocean surface regulates the atmospheric temperature above it heavily because ocean has a high heat capacity, so it does not change in temperature very much, and so it regulates the air temperature above it. So they take the ocean temperature average and the land air average and add those together, and that's your average temperature overall
Right.
for the planet. And so when you're looking at that, that's telling us that we're right now in the range of 1.2 to 1.3 C above pre-industrial.
Yeah.
And obviously, pre-industrial gets kind of confusing because we don't have thermometers that tell us how warm it was in 1750. The estimates for how cool it was, I suppose, how cool it was in 1750 are largely um, based on proxy data, so data from trees, from other proxies that give us an estimate for how warm it was in certain regions, especially Europe. That's where a lot of the studies come from, or North America too, to some degree,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the mid 18th century. But the earliest data sets starting around 1850. So there's some idea that there was global warming between 1750 and 1850, but was very, very minimal because you had just started pumping carbon dioxide in large amounts into the atmosphere, and then after 1850 it kicks up a little bit faster, and you have this variability in the 20th century with the Dust Bowl in the U.S. and then a little bit of slight cooling in the 40s and 50s because of increased aerosols,
Right.
that global dimming,
Global dimming.
and then global warming really started to accelerate after the 1970s. And in fact, I've been on Guy's show before,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him that I thought abrupt climate change started in the late 70s, early 80s, because that's when the combination of reduced aerosols, a lot of countries started to clean up their aerosols, and
Yeah,
also
I remember.
and also yeah, and also just other thresholds like sea ice started to get lost faster after the 1970s, and the combination of different things led to an acceleration in global warming that's continued since the 1980s. So basically, since I was born. Um,
Wow,
but
you're a baby.
but yeah, so I mean, I think that Sam Carana moniker, whoever he or she or they are, they calculate their calculation is based on on what they think on based on basically the land air temperature, um, and so um, obviously the land air temperatures more is going to be hotter than the ocean surface, which is warming more slowly over time because the oceans warm slower, but the oceans retain a lot of heat, which will later play a role in the reduction of ice sheets, reduction of sea ice, and sea level rise. So you have to use both. You have to use all of those areas to encompassing the entire Earth to get your global average temperature to be as accurate as possible.
It's pretty complex. And
Yeah,
this fall had said, I don't think we did much to diminish global dimming. About the only things we decreased was auto and plane emissions. We didn't really decrease coal output.
yeah. I mean, there was some clearing of pollution from over Italy and over eastern northern China and Wuhan and probably some other areas that did successful lockdowns. But
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't really hear anything about too much pollution reduction. I mean, there was some pollution reduction in India too, but I mean,
Yeah, not.
it would take like abrupt collapse
Well,
of the economy
Void said
to bring that
a
about.
collapse. He said something like 6% lower CO2 emissions due to COVID, but no global dimming mention on PBS. Well, they don't. They
Yeah.
don't talk about that. Oh, here's a question. Will Earth Overshoot Day be pushed back this year due to shutdowns? I don't know, right?
I don't
Will
know.
that change? Will we overshoot? I think we've overshot everything, TCR.
I think we're like using the amount of resources equivalent to like 1.5 Earths now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Well, let's
yeah. It's
see.
crazy.
And then Carl had said, I think we've actually 1.2 to 4C above 1900 and only 0.8C above the medieval warm period. Well, I don't know. And then there's the 1750 baseline versus 1850 baseline. So we're going back. I'm just going back to see the comments from what you were Void says Nick sounds so much better than corporate state news, doesn't he? Though, and I'm a citizen scientist, but he's a real one, a meteorologist scientist. Rich says MSM will never ask Nick to come on camera. Too much truth. Yeah, but that's a drag because he really should be on a show and he should be out there talking to more than 68 people total between freaking Facebook and YouTube. That's all we can freaking. After I've been doing this shit for how long and I can't even pull in. Come on. Plus, they're also squelching. With that, they're squelching us at YouTube. I know that they're doing that. I know it. You can't get out. It's like you gotta punch your way out like
Yeah.
you're in a paper bag. And I'm not gonna pay them to advertise the show. You know you can do that on YouTube. People do that. How do you think?
Oh,
Oh
really?
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
whole thing. They ask you to advertise, and you can get your show shown here and there. And I'm like, fuck you. Excuse my language, Nick. I just ruined the show for any professional purposes. But I'm not paying Google, Facebook, or any of those jackasses. I used to pay Facebook, but you know what? That was fuck them. Okay, I'm not gonna get that mad. Not gonna get. Oh, a boy in his shopping cart. Oop! I'm saying bad words, and your son is there. Oh
He can't
no.
hear
Okay.
you because I got my earphones
Oh,
on.
okay,
So.
good, good. So, a boy in his shopping cart. Could the elephants be eating brush that's been covered in locust poop and thus dropping dead from the bacteria in the feces? Wow. Now
I
that
don't
would
know,
be,
maybe.
we got to get who, a biologist on here or a who? We'll have to get somebody else on there. Okay, this is very important. Vegematic. Anyone remember underarm spray with aluminum chlorhydrate in the 70s? Yes, and we had to stop that shit because of what, the ozone hole or something like that. We used to really wear horrible things. Aluminum chlorhydrate was awful. Yeah, I remember it because
Eh,
that's when I was like
oh,
probably.
asbestos and lead paint,
Yeah, well, wait a minute.
back in the day.
Asbestos is okay now, according to Donald Trump. They make it in freaking Russia, and it says Trump asbestos. It had a picture of him. Now I don't know if that was fake news, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't put it past. So Rich says IPCC disregards methane release thanks to their corporate editing. Well, we all say, I mean, come on to our show when
Yeah.
Antonio's on it. Forget it. You guys go at it. Uh,
Yeah.
well, let's see. Patricia Unruh, she says, Veg, I remember that underarm spray all too well. Yeah, we probably all are going to get cancer from using it back then. Who knows? Who the frick knows? I don't know. Everything is going to do that. Um, let's see. Boiled rope lamppost. We need alarmists right now. Well, not according to Michael Schellenberger, that me and Richard talked about. Boomer, you. Going South says, I need alarmists for 8:15 tomorrow. Okay, a little humor here. I'm looking for, okay, Stephen Verschinsky. He says 2021 IPCC report will be a rude awakening, I predict. What do you think about that one, Nick?
Yeah, the IPCC, I mean, they can, do all the political dancing and editing all they want. I mean, they can't, at some point, it just gets bad, and I mean the models, I mean a lot of the climate scientists are arguing about whether the models are accurate in their assessment that the warming is going to be worse and faster through the 21st century than than the previous suite of models that the IPCC used in the 2013 report, 2013 2014 report. And because I mean now they're projecting, some of them are projecting like 6, 7, 8 degrees of warming versus 3 to 5 degrees of warming, and just ridiculous amounts of
Oops.
heating. And I mean, I mean, you're talking, if you're talking like 7 or 8 degrees by 2100, this number we get it's thrown out, 2100 a lot. You're talking like 3 degrees maybe by 2050, and it's like how are you gonna grow food on the Great Plains of the U.S. at 3 degrees when you
We're
have
not.
like 50? I mean, at 3 degrees, I think. I'm trying to remember, but because I've seen all sorts of different things over the past couple of years, but I think at 3 degrees you start getting like 50 days a year
Mm-hmm.
of temperatures over 100 degrees
Mm.
in this part of the world where I live. And I mean, 100 degree temperatures in Lincoln, Nebraska, for example, are actually kind of rare. I mean, our hottest all-time record high temperature is 115 in Lincoln, and that was
Wow.
in 1936
Wow, that's
during the
an
Dust Bowl.
anomaly. Oh, during the Dust Bowl.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it was so hot. It was so hot that it was actually like Phoenix weather is having had this past weekend,
mm,
where it was 90 degrees, 91 degrees for a morning low. It was so hot. You had 1936. There was no air conditioning. People had to go sit outside and sleep outside
yeah, well,
because it was
I'm
so
going to be
hot.
doing that
You
tonight.
know, yeah. So I mean, it is, we could be seeing like 40, 50 days a year of temperatures over 100 degrees. And I mean, it's just like in Lincoln, Nebraska,
Right.
at 3 degrees of warming globally. you know I mean, everything that's grown here is just going to shrivel away. It's not going to be viable here. So I mean, you're talking about, even if you assume, I mean, everybody thinks. and believes everything's going to go faster, much faster than we can predict. But
Right.
even if we assume the timeline that IPCC is putting out is correct, that will reach 2 to 3 degrees by 2050, and I mean this is the 2021 report will probably say something like that. It's devastating. It's absolutely catastrophic for civilization. It's catastrophic for ecosystems. It's catastrophic for everything. It's just too fast. It's way too fast. And and I mean, nobody appreciates anything being like world altering catastrophe. I hear people saying, "Oh, just about COVID-19, for example. It just affects these people here. It don't affect me at all."
Yeah.
And it's like, they're no,
Selfish.
it affects you. It affects your family. It affects your economy that you're living in. It affects literally everything that you're dealing with.
Selfish.
It's the same thing with climate change. It affects every aspect of your life, and people just average people just blow it off, pretending it's not a big deal. It's not a thing. I mean, COVID-19 is nothing in comparison to this. It's like a wavelet versus the tsunami,
Yeah.
which is
A lot of
more
people have been
dramatic,
talking about
and
that.
then people can't even comprehend the idea of putting on a piece of cloth over their face
I don't even want to
to
get
deal with
into
an
that
infectious
one.
disease.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
get into that
they
one, I'll
won't
get
even
angry. Um,
yeah, and yet they can't deal with that, but yet they let alone deal with climate change, abrupt climate
those are
change,
the
rapid
first
climate
ones
change
that'll.
over just a few
Yeah, their
decades.
guns won't save them. So, Going South says, do you think COVID could spread by mosquitoes, Nick?
Not well. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't heard evidence of being spread by animals yet, except for I've heard felines can get COVID from humans, but they can't confirm that it can go from felines to humans after they catch it from humans. But I've heard, but I mean, there are cats, like in tigers at the New York City Zoo that got COVID-19
Yeah.
exposure to
Freaky.
humans. It's like, well, wow.
Freaky.
But I saw some news story. One of my Facebook friends posted like an hour before the show, showing evidence that it was actually sexually transmissible. So it was like a sexually transmissible disease. But it's all human to human stuff. I haven't heard anything about animals or insects yet.
Wow. Well, we're going on about a minute. I mean, an hour, a minute, an hour and 15 minutes. And this was great. Even though I'm sweltering and it's hot as hell in here, I really enjoyed this. Next time I'll set up the fan. We have a really good audience tonight, and I want to thank everybody. Does anybody? Well, actually, Void said COVID needs the ACE2 receptors to mainly spread, so maybe he's answering that question for the mosquitoes. But anyway, Jilly wants to know how the fuck does it spread at the beach, and I said it. She said F, and I said fuck. So I'm just in that mood. I've ruined your stream for sharing to anybody else unless I edit the F word out or beep it. So, Nick, you got any parting wisdom for everybody?
Stay cool. It's gonna be hot across the country for like next 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, stay cool. It's gonna be hot.
Maybe I'll sweat some of the quarantine 19 off. God knows it hasn't been good for my body. I won't say what I was gonna say. Well, everybody, no, it's terrible. Even though I've been outside a lot, it's still terrible. Well, don't forget to like Vegematic Says and subscribe. And don't forget the Vegematic channel. And don't forget Jim McHenry, who does his climate change talk on Facebook every Friday in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Raza, thank you for coming from the UK. Jean from Costa Rica. Chris, thank you. She says, love you guys. Call me soon, Sandy. Of course, I guess we need an update because That's what us girls do. And Boiled Rope Lamppost, thank you. Copy Cooney Greg, I'm so glad you came. Poetry Yoga Rad Ego Fem. I wonder if if the 8 billion human bodies will feed the earth after we're all taken. Yeah, when we rot right in. Yeah, right? Because those of us that aren't going to be lucky enough to get cremated are going to rot right in there. And this fall, this fall, thanks, Nick, for doing what you're doing, being honest about it. And everybody, thank you so very much. It's really been a good show. Nick, I always love having you. And don't forget, Thursday night, we have the whole crew, State of the Planet, Nicholas, Antonio, Jennifer, and myself, 9:30 Eastern. So my show this week is preempted by everybody else being with me, which is great. And like Basil said, namaste. Namaste. It's nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace out, everybody. See you Thursday night. I'm going to play the opening video so they can chat away for 2 minutes. Good night, guys.